welcome to Darvanalee Design Studio. My name's Nicole Reed and today we're working on our Block of the Month series, block number 5, Road to California Variation. So let's get started. Okay, so there are a few things that you're going to need. You're going to need an ironing pad for when it comes to pressing. You're going to need the pattern from over on our website. You're going to need a couple of rulers. So I use a square one. This one is the one that I use to square up, but any quilting ruler will be fine. I also use a little one to cut my little one, easier to handle to cut my little squares. I also use a small rotary cutter. When I'm cutting little stuff, I've got more control over it, less likely to slip and cut it. You're going to need matching thread. You're going to need some pins, a quick unpick just in case, and some thread snips, and also an iron. So basically, if you've got all these supplies, you'll be good to go. And now I will show you what the cutting that we need to do. Alright, so here we are with block number 5. It's called Road to California Variation. Okay, yes, it has some smaller pieces in it, so we only have to make a couple of cuts this time. So you'll be able to find the pattern over at our website. So the link is down below for that. So if you click that, that'll scoot you on over, and then there's a downloadable file there for you. Print it off and then come back and you'll be ready to go. So for cut A, for the coloured ones, we've got to cut 25 1 7/8 of an inch squares, and in the white the same measurement but only 20. And then in cut B we cut some 5-inch squares and then we cross cut them. So you cut 2 5-inch squares and then you cross cut them, so you get 4 triangles out of those 2 squares, and the same again for the white as well. So we've got all our stuff cut now, and we're going to head on over to the... Okay, so here we are at the sewing machine getting ready to sew our half square triangles together. Basically, you want to reduce your stitch length down to a 2 because we're going to be pressing our seams open. We're going to chain piece these through to make it a little bit quicker. So we're going to get started on that, and all you need to do is grab your triangles, a blue and a white one with right sides together, and we're going to sew the bottom end of the triangle. Okay, so there we are with our half square triangles, and we've made 4 units. We're going to set them aside, and then we're going to start on our 9 patches. Okay, the next step is to make our 9 patches. So basically we just need to get our squares that we've already cut, which are 1 7/8, and we're going to create a pattern with them. So starting with a purple for the first one that I'm doing. And they're all exactly the same. Our first row is purple, white, purple. The next row is the opposite to that. So you'll have a white and a purple and then a white. And finally, the last row is going to be the same as the first row. So purple, white, and then purple. It's like a purplish blue that I'm using today, but I'm going to call it purple. And that's what we're going for. So we're going to make 5 of those, and you just do each row, and basically I'll just do one on camera, and then we can pause, and then you can continue on with the rest. Okay, so I'm going to get started on that. So I know what my pattern's going to be now, so I'll just set those aside over onto my design mat, and then I'll get sewing. Okay, so now we have our 3 rows. There's our top one, our middle one, and our bottom one. So basically what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to finger press them open, and then I'm going to grab a couple of pins, and then I'm going to assemble the block, and then I'm going to repeat that another 4 times, and that way I'll end up with 5 of these units. Okay, so we take our top row and our middle row and we lay them on top of each other, right sides together, aligning our seams. And I just put a pin into the seam, about 1/4 of an inch away down, and then I come out in the seam. I go in on the back as well. And for me, this is a great little tip that I learnt, can't remember where I learnt it from, that just helps me to align my seams and get an accurate piecing. So you can see there I've come out on the back in the seam, and then I will just bring that back through, and it's on the seam on the front as well. So now I'm going to sew those through. And everything's lining up nicely that I can see. Let's hope that it continues that way when I open it up. And there we go. You can see there that it's all aligning up quite nicely, and I'll press that open in just a sec when I press everything else. So I'm pretty happy with that, and I'm going to add the last one on. So again, I press the seams open. Now we're going to line that up again. So again, with the right sides together, aligning our seams, or nesting our seams as they say. And trying not to warp or stretch my fabric as well when I'm sewing, so I'll just go through nice and slow. And there we go. That's our first one. So we're going to do that another 4 times, and we'll end up with 5 of these units, and then we'll be on to a final assembly. Okay, so there we have it, our 9 patches. Now we're going to head over to the cutting mat and the ironing pad. We're going to give them a really good press, square everything up, and then we'll be ready for final assembly. Okay, so here we are. We're back here at the cutting mat, and I've just grabbed the ironing pad, and the iron is heating up. We've got our little 9 patches. We should have 5 of those, and we've got our half square triangles, and we have 4 of those. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to quickly press all those seams and everything, and make sure that everything is nice and pressed. And if you need to, you can hit it with a little bit of best press or something along those lines. And for those that don't know what that is, I'll link that up down below of where you can purchase that. So I'm going to press my seams open on my half square triangles. I always just sort of give them a bit of a finger press before I start, and then I grab the iron and give it a good pressing. So you can see there it's sitting nice and flat, and that'll be really easy to press. And I repeat that with all of them. Okay, so that's the half square triangles done, so we'll set them aside, ready for squaring up. And now I'm just going to do my 9 patches. Alrighty, so we've done all our pressing. We can put the iron away now and get rid of the ironing mat. And next we're moving on to squaring up. Now these should be measuring about 4.5 inches approximately, give or take. It'll depend on your sewing machine and the presser foot and what seam allowance you've used. If you've used your scant or your just a regular 1/4 inch, this can all make a difference to the size. I personally use a scant 1/4 inch foot. So I'm just going to measure everything, make sure that it's 4.5. And that one's pretty spot on right there. You can see that I'm lining everything up, and I've just got to take a little bit of a whisper off. So I used my 45-degree angle on my ruler, and I lined that up onto the seam where the two colours meet. So I can see that that's nice and straight. It's on the 4.5, and I can just trim this little bit off here. And as I said, I have been using a smaller rotary cutter lately, just for better control over everything. So I can set that one aside. And as you can see, I'm only taking just a whisper off. You may not have to trim up at all. So just measure everything. So this one here, I must have gone a little bit wobbly with my seam, so my 45 isn't lining up very well. So I'm just going to put it up a little bit, and you can see down here that the blue fabric has gone past the 4.5. That's okay. I'm just getting it so this is straight, and that way I'll get square, half square triangles instead of having, you know, maybe a little bit more white or a little bit more blue. So what I'll do is I'll cut this way. So, and that has come down to my sewing. So I've gone a little bit wobbly, but I am also filming around, I'm sewing around a camera, so that can be a little bit of a problem sometimes. So now what I've done is I've spun that around, and I've got two straight edges that I've just cut. And I've lined up my 4.5 on the blue and the white here. And you can see I've just got to take a whisper off, and that's going to give me a nice, and this is nice and straight. So that's going to give me a really good half square triangle. So there we go. And everything's lining up pretty good on this one. So I can bring it up a little bit closer and see that's nice and straight on that seam. So it was only that one that I had a bit of an issue with, and that is only because I've gone a bit wobbly with my sewing. So there we go. Just take a smidgen off that one. It's just a little bit that I've got to take off. And that probably would come down to that, what you didn't see, I actually made a mistake and had to unpick, and I've probably warped it a little bit, and then not sewn it together entirely straight. So I'm just going to take a little bit off that and get them all to be the same size. So you can see there where I've unpicked. So there is now 4.5, and it's matching my half square triangles. And I'm just going to go ahead and measure all the rest and make sure that they're okay, and trim off what I need. This one needs a little bit of a trim too. So in cases like this, what I try to do on my center square is I line up the 45-degree angle from corner to corner and make sure that it's sort of going corner to corner for my outside ones as well, and that way I know that it's sort of going to square up pretty well. And I try to just take a little bit off each side so it looks a lot more even than just taking a big chunk off. And I spin that around, and as you can see, I don't really have to take that much off. So alrighty, so now we'll just keep going with that, and we'll get on to the next part, which is final assembly. Alrighty, so we're all squared up, and now we're going to lay out our pattern. Now you really need to take your time here and look at your picture, so you've got your coloured picture of placement of where it's got to go. Okay, so really take your time here, ladies and gentlemen. So basically you're going to get a 9 patch. For this particular block, you're going to get a 9 patch, and then you're going to get a half square triangle, and you're going to put the white facing up towards the 9 patch. Then you're going to grab another one, and you're just going to lay that down like that. Okay, and you're going to then repeat the same sort of scenario with the next one, except you're half square triangle is going to start first. Okay, and again, the white is going up towards the 9 patch, and then you'll get another 9 patch, and you'll pop that there, and then you'll get another half square triangle, but this time the blue is going to touch the blue here. Okay, and you can see there it's making that little pattern just here. So you've got your 9 patches here creating like a line of blue purple squares, and then you've got this, what I would call like a butterfly or an hourglass. Okay, so the next one is the next row is we lay down a 9 patch, then we grab our half square triangle again, and again the blue goes towards the blue or whatever color that you're using. Okay, and then finally a 9 patch. So what we're going to do now, the sequence of sewing is our first row, and we're going to start from the left hand side working to the right, and then we'll do the middle row again starting from the left hand side and working across, and then we'll do our last row and again from the left to the right. And once we've got those 3 rows sewn together, we'll then take our first row and put it to our second row, and then our third row we will attach to the middle row as well. And basically that's how we're going to go from top to bottom. And my suggestion, so you don't get lost of where you are, especially when you've got a lot of pieces, is just to lay it back down from where you've got it. So when I sew it, I will sew this row, and when I'm finished that row, I will sit it back where I took it from. And the same with the middle row, and the same with the last row. And that doesn't matter what patchwork block I'm working with, if it's got 10 rows in it, or it's got 5 rows in it, or it's only got 3 rows in it. I always lay it back down so I don't lose where I'm at. So maybe give that a go for those that have been struggling a little bit with placement and where blocks go and getting a bit lost, because there's, you know, some of our blocks have got 5 rows in them, so that makes it a little bit hard and tricky for some people. I myself get lost with lots of rows and stuff like that. That's why I've got into the habit of laying everything down. So I'm going to head over to the sewing machine now, and we're going to assemble this block, and when I come back it'll be all assembled and we'll be finished our block. Okay, so we're back at the sewing machine and we've got our block all laid out on a temporary design board. If you're looking for the tutorial on that, I'll link that up in the cards up above the screen. It'll pop out just about now, and then basically what we're going to do is we're going to put our block together. So as you can see, I've moved my design board over here. The block is exactly laid out how it was that I was just showing you just then. And then I'm going to start with the first row, and I'm going to take a 9 patch and my half square triangle, and I've taken them off and sat them in front of me exactly how they came off the design board. And now I'm going to put them right sides together. So I'm going to get my half square triangle, it's laid beside it, the 9 patch, and I'm just going to flip that over. I'm going to line all my edges up. So you can see there that it's all lined up. You can't see any of the fabric on either side. And then if you aren't comfortable enough not sewing with pins, then by all means put a couple of pins in there. But I'm okay with not using pins for this sort of thing. I will when I come to put the rows together. So starting off with the needle in the down position, I will now sew it together. Making sure that I'm keeping my seam allowance accurate. Once I get to the end, I just pull that out. I can see that that's all lined up. I now grab my next piece, which is my 9 patch, and I attach that to the half square triangle. So laying them down and then just flipping it on top. Now that's row 1 complete. There we go, you can see that, that's row 1 complete. And now I just sit that straight back onto the design board, exactly how it came off. And then I grab the next one, which is a half square triangle, knowing that my white piece should be facing out to the left. Then I grab my 9 patch, and now I'm just going to place that 9 patch on top with right sides together. My needle in the down position. I then proceed to sew. Okay, and then I grab my half square triangle again, and this time with my blue triangle facing into the left hand corner. And that's row 2. So you can see there that one of the half square triangles is facing down and the other one is facing up, and that's our middle row. And then I'm going to place that back onto the design board in the center. And then we're going to get our last row, which is a 9 patch it starts with, then our blue facing up to the corner up here, and we're just going to half square triangle, and then we're just going to place that on top. Open that up, grab our last 9 patch, and we'll place that on top of that, right sides together. So our 1/4 inch seam, and that's our last row assembled. So place that back down onto the design board, and now what we're going to do is grab row 1 and row 2, and then we're going to place them right sides together. So this is row, I'll just put my needle up. So there's row 1, so it starts with a 9 patch, and then this is row 2, which has the 9 patch in the center. So basically what you're going to do now is you're going to take the middle row, so row 2, and place it on top of row 1. And we're just going to align our seams. You'll need to grab a couple of pins. I always use pins at this section. Alright, and you can see there that I'm just nesting up the seams. And I'm going to grab a pin, and I'm going to place that in there. And there you go, you can see there that it's lining up. I can not see fabric on either side. The corners are lining up, all my raw edges are aligned. So now what I can do is I can pop that into the sewing machine, starting in the down position with the needle. I can now sew that. There we go, you can see there that we've got a nice clean line. Okay, and we haven't lost any of our points or anything like that, so that's good. I'm happy with that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to get row 3, okay, and we're going to place that on top of row 2, and we're going to repeat that process. And there we go. It's all lined up beautifully. Alrighty, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to head back over to the ironing pad, give that a big press. But okay, so that's our block today. I hope you really enjoyed it. This is blocks called Road to California Variation. It's great little block to practice your 9 patches and everything like that. We've got 1/4 inch all the way around, which makes it very easy to sew into our quilt or into our table runners, whatever you're going to use them for. These make great little mini quilts too. You can pop them up on your wall and decorate your sewing room. So I hope you really enjoyed it. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me today. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I had a great time making it, and I hope you do too. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up down below. As always, we love to hear from you, so leave us a comment and tell us what you thought. And if you're new to this channel or you've been here a bit and you still haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon beside it, and that way you won't miss out on any future posts. My name's Nicole Reid for Darvanalee Design Studio. Thank you very much for joining me today, and I'll see you all again next time. Bye for now.